There's no change atop Brandon Marcello's college football power rankings this week. Ohio State remains in the top spot. No changes to the top three, and Oklahoma's ahead of Alabama if the Sooners win in Tuscaloosa. Down to the bottom tier, Group of 5 has three teams from 20 to 25, with James Madison leading the way. Hey there, folks. I'm Tommy Tran with Brandon Marcello puts the power rankings together. Welcome back. Danny Kanell from the Cover 3 podcast. Shout out to Chip Patterson for pinch hitting in last week. Okay, let's talk about Texas A&M. What a comeback. They stay at 3, Brandon, and I only asked that because last week you penalized Indiana for their win against Penn State, dropped them a spot. Problem is you had Alabama at 4, which lost to Oklahoma. So if Bama had won, would you have flipped that with Alabama at 3 and maybe have dropped Texas A&M a slot?
Well, number one, I don't have Alabama at 4. Number two, Texas A&M's comeback was historic there in the second half, scoring 28 points in a span of less than 20 minutes of game time. As bad as that first half was, they looked like a championship team and did what a championship team has to do in games when their backs are against the wall. And we've seen here in the last couple of weeks, we will continue to see a lot of these games where we've got teams with injury issues going up against teams that are with their backs against the wall. You're going to see some tight games. We saw it Georgia Tech and Boston College earlier this week. And yes, I did, quote unquote, penalize Indiana, but their penalization was going from number 1 to number 2 in a spot where they had been shaky at number 1 for better part of the last 4 weeks. Anyway, Texas A&M will hold steady because, as you said, the team that was right behind them, Alabama, lost. So I was not going to jump Georgia all the way above Texas A&M because A&M is undefeated and Georgia has a loss, and that loss, by the way, was at home to Alabama. So A&M holds steady, and they should hold steady as an undefeated team.
I think there are some similarities to Indiana against Penn State. Like you saw one drive for Indiana, and it felt like, man, they can do that. Now we've seen this incredible comeback from A&M, and you're like, well, they can do that. And I think we need to remind people of a couple things. One thing, it's a 60-minute football game, right? A half does not make a game, and you can come out flat. You can play horrible, as Marcel Reed did. But what do you do in the second half? And they came out there, to Brandon's point, and played like a championship team, where I almost feel better about Texas A&M now because I'm like, oh, they can do that. If they get down to anybody, they can do that on the field. And Marcel Reed can put the team on his back and do it through the air and on the ground. I thought that was huge for Texas A&M. So I would never apologize for a win, and I don't think anybody ever would, and I don't think Mike Elko would. So I think a win is a win.
All right, let's get to Alabama, which again fell from 4 to 10. Oklahoma also at 9. Brandon, take us through that.
Yeah, listen, this is a situation where OU won because of its defense. They forced 3 turnovers. More importantly, they scored 17 points off those 3 turnovers. They don't win this game if they only force 2 turnovers, or they win the turnover battle by just 1 or 2. No, they won the turnover battle 3-0. They got some key sacks late in that game, held off Alabama. Alabama for 3 straight drives in the second half after they came out in the second half and drove down the field. OU held them to 17 combined yards and also forced a key turnover during that stretch. And yes, OU only had 212 yards of offense, the 4th fewest ever by a team to beat a team that was ranked in the top 5. But defense, as they say, the old adage, wins championships, especially down the stretch. Their offense is struggling. John Mateer's hand isn't completely healthy, but he is looking a little bit better out there. OU to do this on the road was uber impressive, especially against a tied team, by the way, that the last couple weeks we started seeing some more weaknesses there where they did look invincible for about a 4-week stretch. Now you see them on shaky ground, and it took a great defense like OU to do this. And the Sooners in a great position now to reach the college football playoff. Their last 2 games here at home against a struggling Missouri team, which has yet to beat a ranked opponent all year, and then also against LSU with the interim coach. The Sooners sitting pretty at this point. What an incredible storyline for them after losing to Texas earlier in the year.
No doubt, Brandon. I'll tackle this from Alabama's standpoint because they did almost out-double them in offensive production, but it did come down to those turnovers. And Kalen DeBoer after the game did say, I felt really good about the way we played offensively. The quarterback and you handed him a pick 6. Like, that's not a winnable strategy to go out there. So they've got to clean those things up. But I do think some of their weaknesses really started to show up. The offensive line, which has been an issue, did struggle there. And oh boy, Bama, I know they're just sitting there and they're in the playoffs if they win out, but that game against Auburn, another defense that is one of the best in the country, could make that Iron Bowl even that much more intriguing.
Brandon, you got the Trojans coming in at 13. What's at stake for Lincoln Riley and USC this week?
Oh, man, what a big game coming up there at Oregon. And Oregon is invincible. We saw Indiana, though Indiana is one of the top 2 teams in the country, go in there and win by double digits despite throwing a pick 6 themselves. USC's got a top 6 offense in the country right now. We know Lincoln Riley makes his butter there. But what was really impressive to me about USC this week is they fell behind 14-0 at home against a very good, and I still think underrated Iowa team. I still have them in my top 25. An Iowa team that really had a chance to beat their last 2 opponents, maybe be in the playoff race themselves. But USC rallied back and won that game at home, setting up this huge matchup at Oregon. I like USC's chances here, even on the road. Talk about a big spot, and I love the coaching job that this USC staff has done over these last 3 to 4 weeks. With their backs against the wall, they cannot have any errors here, and they've managed to just keep winning different ways, both offensively and defensively when they need it. I can't wait for this matchup. Do not discount the Trojans potentially mounting the upset in Eugene.
And then I think that does make them a very viable playoff caliber team. And what would that mean for Oregon is very interesting, too, because a lot has been made of their resume and where's their signature win. They have the opportunity to go and do it against USC. So I think this USC team is really good. It was my dark horse team coming into the season. Everybody kind of wrote them off after they lost to Illinois, which is not an egregiously bad loss. The Notre Dame game, that's not a bad loss either. And they were tied in the 4th quarter before the rain came down. So that one doesn't look bad. But USC does need that. They did beat Michigan. That was one that, Lincoln Riley was saying we got a Big Ten win. But the ability to beat Oregon on the road and possibly knock Oregon below them to where you're in the playoffs all of a sudden would be massive for USC.
And lastly, gents, James Madison, Brandon, has certainly had to love to see what the American cannibalize itself right now. Give me the lowdown on the Dukes.
Yeah, they just need to hope that keeps happening. They need North Texas to lose another game. That's really the team that they should be circled on right there in the American. But James Madison continues to move up their rankings, up to number 20 in my power rankings right now. They just blew out an App State team that's been kind of mediocre to below average this year, but they did so on their road. They could do it on the ground. They could do it through the air, James Madison, and their defense has just been stellar all throughout this campaign here. But they need the American to continue to lose, and especially, I think, they need North Texas to trip up here. Otherwise, the American Conference champion is going to get in the playoff, and James Madison's going to be on the outside looking in.
So here's where I think we're going to hold the committee's feet to the fire, because all they've talked about is strength of schedule. And we always talked about it from the SEC, Big Ten, ACC, Big 12. But this is one where it's going to come into play with a group of 5 because, as you can see on this graphic, James Madison's strength of schedule is not very strong. Their only Power 4 opponent that they played against was Louisville, a game that they lost by 2 touchdowns. Meanwhile, you've got those teams in the American, and I'll single out, Tulane, who's playing in the championship game potentially as it sits now. They played 3 Power 4 opponents and beat 2 of them, including a Big Ten team, a Northwestern, and an ACC team in Duke. So I think, and this is where I get a lot of heat for it, that's where I think there should be some minimum restrictions put in place for these group of 5 teams. Maybe it's a minimum ranking that you have to get at least to the top 16. But more importantly, I think you should have to schedule multiple Power 4 teams so you have that opportunity to see how you stack up against the better competition. I still think this thing is very interesting, and I think it is more than North Texas, because I think if Tulane wins it with those couple wins over the Power 4 teams, I think Tulane would get the edge too. All
right, Danny, you bring up some good points, especially with the scheduling in terms of their non-con to have some P4 spice in there. And also check out Brandon Marcello's full ranking, CBSSports.com. DK, Chip Patterson, Tom Fornelli, Bud Elliott, Cover 3. Scan the QR code. Check them out.